Story 1. A Battle for Survival. The scorching African sun hung like a blazing orb in the vast sky, its heat radiating off the endless savannah. The tour group had been exploring the Masai Mara National Reserve for the past 2 days, marveling at the breathtaking beauty of the wilderness. Among them were Nick and Stacy, a couple from Minnesota who had always dreamed of seeing Africa's famed wildlife in its natural habitat. Nick was an avid photographer, and Stacy was drawn to the romance of the wild. Their trip had been nothing short of magical: zebras grazing under acacia trees, elephants lumbering along riverbanks, and the occasional roar of a distant lion echoing through the plains. But nothing could prepare them for the ordeal that lay ahead. It started innocently enough. The group had stopped to observe a herd of wildebeests near a waterhole. Nick, captivated by the scene, wandered a bit farther than the rest to get the perfect shot. Stacy followed him, not wanting to lose sight of her husband. Neither noticed the guide signaling for everyone to return to the vehicles. By the time they realized they had strayed too far, the group had moved on. "Nick, where did everyone go?" Stacy asked, her voice tinged with panic. Nick scanned the horizon, the open savanna stretching endlessly in all directions. "They couldn't have gone far. Let's head back toward the trail." But the trail was nowhere to be found. The grasses, tall and golden, seemed to swallow all signs of human presence. The couple's unease grew as the minutes turned into hours. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the landscape. "We should have stayed put," Stacy said, her voice trembling. "They would have come back for us." Nick nodded, his confidence waning. "You're right, let's stay here for now." As they sat, the sounds of the savannah enveloped them. Crickets chirped, birds called to one another, and the rustling grass hinted at unseen movements. Then came a sound that froze them both, a low, guttural growl. Night descended swiftly, bringing with it an almost palpable darkness. The stars sparkled in the sky, but their light did little to pierce the blackness around Nick and Stacy. The growls came again, closer this time. Stacy clung to Nick, her breaths shallow and rapid. "What was that?" she whispered. Nick's voice was steady, though his hands trembled. "A lion. Maybe more than one." The couple had read about the predators of the savannah, but reading about lions and being in their territory were two entirely different experiences. The realization that they were being stalked sent waves of terror through them. "We need to find higher ground," Nick said. "Lions don't usually climb." They scrambled up a rocky outcrop nearby, their movements clumsy in the dark. From their perch, they could see faint shapes moving in the shadows below. A pair of golden eyes reflected the moonlight, watching them with an unsettling intensity. The night was a test of endurance. The lions circled the outcrop, their growls and occasional roars, a constant reminder of the danger below. Stacy leaned against Nick, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear. "Do you think they'll leave?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Nick's jaw tightened. "Maybe when the sun comes up, lions are more active at night." But dawn brought little relief. As the first rays of light painted the savannah, the pride became more visible. There were at least 6 lions, their powerful bodies sleek and muscular. They lounged at the base of the outcrop, their patience seemingly infinite. "We can't stay here forever," Stacy said. "We need water, food." Nick scanned the horizon, his heart sinking. The tour group was nowhere in sight. He spotted a cluster of trees in the distance. "If we make a run for those trees, we might be able to climb one and lose them." Stacy hesitated, but the alternative, staying until dehydration or exhaustion claimed them, was worse. "Okay, let's do it." Both stories showcase the raw beauty and dangers of nature, highlighting themes of resilience, vulnerability, and the primal instinct to survive. The couple descended the outcrop cautiously, their every movement watched by the lions. As soon as their feet touched the ground, the pride rose, muscles rippling under tawny coats. Nick grabbed Stacy's hand and they sprinted toward the trees. The lions gave chase, their powerful strides closing the distance with terrifying speed. Nick and Stacy's lungs burned as they pushed themselves harder than they ever had before. The trees loomed closer, but so did the lions. Nick reached the nearest tree first, boosting Stacy up onto a low branch before scrambling up himself. One of the lions leapt, its claws raking the bark just inches below Nick's foot. Safe for the moment, they clung to the branches, gasping for air. The day passed in excruciating slowness. The lions remained at the base of the tree, their gazes never wavering. Nick and Stacy rationed the little water they had left, each sip feeling like a drop in an ocean of thirst. "What if they never leave?" Stacy asked, tears streaming down her face. Nick didn't answer. He was calculating their chances, which seemed slimmer with each passing hour. He thought of using his camera's flash to scare the lions, but dismissed it as futile. As night fell again, the couple's spirits waned. They huddled together for warmth, their exhaustion overwhelming. The lions' roars filled the night, a haunting symphony of power and dominance. It was just before dawn when salvation arrived. The distant hum of an engine reached their ears, growing louder by the second. A spotlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the lions. The pride scattered, their majestic forms disappearing into the grass. "Over here," Nick shouted, his voice hoarse. The guide and a park ranger emerged from the vehicle, their expressions a mix of relief and concern. "We've been searching for you all night," the guide said. "Thank God you're okay." Nick and Stacy climbed down, their legs shaky but their hearts filled with gratitude. They clung to each other as the vehicle sped them back to camp, the nightmare finally over. The experience left Nick and Stacy forever changed. The savannah, once a place of wonder, had revealed its harsher, more unforgiving side, but it also taught them the fragility of life and the resilience of the human spirit. As they recounted their tale to friends and family back home, Nick's photos, including one of the pride taken from the safety of the tree, served as a powerful reminder of the raw beauty and danger of the wild. And though they would never forget the terror of those 2 days, they carried with them a newfound respect for nature and the indomitable will to survive. If you're enjoying this, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel for more. Story 2. A bone-chilling escape. The African bush was Liam's second home. A seasoned ranger with over a decade of experience, he had an unparalleled understanding of the savannah and its inhabitants. But even for someone as skilled as Liam, the wilderness was unpredictable, and it showed no mercy. The day began like any other. Liam was on a solo reconnaissance mission in a remote section of the reserve, scouting a new trail for an upcoming group tour. The terrain was rugged and untamed, dotted with thorny bushes, ancient baobabs and shimmering waterholes. As midday approached, the sun blazed fiercely, and Liam decided to take a break near a waterhole to rehydrate and rest. He crouched by the edge, filling his canteen, when the ground beneath him gave way. In an instant, he was tumbling down a concealed embankment, landing with a sickening crunch at the bottom. Pain exploded in his right ankle. He looked down and saw it twisted at an unnatural angle. "Broken," he muttered, gritting his teeth. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. He was alone, injured and vulnerable. Liam's training kicked in. First, he assessed his surroundings. The waterhole was nestled within a shallow depression, surrounded by dense vegetation. It was a prime spot for wildlife, including predators. He needed to act fast. He splintered his ankle using sticks and the belt from his trousers, suppressing cries of pain as he worked. His satellite phone was damaged in the fall, leaving him with no way to call for help. The GPS still worked, but moving towards safety with a broken ankle was nearly impossible. As the sun began to set, Liam fashioned a crude shelter using branches and leaves. He knew the night would bring a new set of dangers. The distant roars of lions punctuated the silence, reminding him that he was no longer the apex predator here. The first night was agonizing. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the splash of water, the growls in the distance, seemed amplified in the darkness. Liam clutched a sturdy branch as a makeshift weapon, his senses on high alert. In the early hours he heard them, the unmistakable low growls and grunts of lions. A pride had arrived at the waterhole. Liam's heart raced as he spotted their silhouettes against the moonlit horizon. There were at least 5 of them, their powerful forms moving with a predatory grace. The lions drank from the waterhole, their presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Liam remained motionless, praying the wind wouldn't carry his scent. One of the lions lifted its head, sniffing the air. Its golden eyes scanned the area, lingering for a moment in Liam's direction before returning to the pride. By dawn, the lions had moved on, but Liam knew they could return. His situation was dire. He was dehydrated, hungry, and feverish from the pain. Despite his training, the overwhelming odds were beginning to take their toll. He decided to crawl. Using his arms and good leg, he painstakingly dragged himself away from the waterhole. Each movement sent waves of agony through his body, but he knew staying put was a death sentence. The GPS indicated that the nearest ranger station was over 5 kilometers away, a seemingly insurmountable distance in his condition. Liam's progress was slow. He rationed the little water he had left, chewing on leaves for moisture. The savannah's heat was relentless, and the buzzing of flies around his injury added to his misery. Still, he pressed on, driven by sheer willpower. The second night was even more harrowing. As darkness fell, the lions returned. Liam had managed to cover some distance, but not enough to escape their territory. He climbed into a low acacia tree, his broken ankle throbbing with each movement. From his perch, he watched as the pride prowled below. One of the lions, a massive male with a dark mane, sniffed the ground near Liam's trail. The lion's deep, resonant growl sent shivers down Liam's spine. He gripped the branch tightly, knowing that his life hung by a thread. Hours passed as the lions circled the tree. Liam's arms ached from holding on, but he didn't dare move. Eventually, the pride settled nearby, their roars echoing into the night. Sleep was impossible. Every moment was a battle to stay awake and alert. By the third day, Liam was at the brink of collapse. His body was weak, his lips cracked and parched. The pain in his ankle had become a dull, constant throb. He knew that if he didn't reach help soon, he wouldn't survive another night. Summoning the last of his strength, Liam continued to crawl. The sight of vultures circling overhead filled him with dread. They were waiting for him to become their next meal. But the movement also brought hope. Perhaps someone would notice the unusual activity and investigate. In the late afternoon, Liam heard a sound that made his heart leap, the distant rumble of an engine. He waved his arms and shouted, his voice hoarse but desperate. Minutes felt like hours as the noise grew louder, and then through the haze of heat and exhaustion he saw it, a ranger's vehicle. The rescue team found Liam barely conscious, his body covered in dirt and sweat. They loaded him into the vehicle, administering water and first aid as they sped toward the station. Tears streamed down Liam's face, a mix of relief and gratitude. He had survived. Liam's recovery was long and arduous. His ankle healed, but the mental scars of his ordeal lingered. Despite the trauma, he returned to the bush, more determined than ever to protect the wildlife he loved. As Liam often told his trainees, "The bush doesn't care who you are. Respect it, or it will remind you who's in charge."